There may be bad divorces that occur, right? There's a good man that gets divorced from a woman, but the woman is constantly planting poisonous seeds in the children. How are the children going to feel about the father? Right? Or it could be vice versa. You could be a single dad and talking crazy about the mom. I don't encourage either of them. Children are going to grow up eventually and see whatever truth they come to, whatever conclusion they come to. Salaam alaikum. Peace. I am Coach Nadir, one of the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored. Now, today I want to answer a question. Matter of fact, let me pull it up so I don't just add. Okay. I want to answer a question. It's a relatively common question. I don't think I've addressed this before, but my wives have. For those of you who don't know, I've been married to Coach Fatima for 26 years, a little over 26 years now, and to Coach Nyla for over 11. So yes, I practiced polygyny for the last 11 years. Now, here's the question. How do you explain to the children that daddy has two wives? Especially when monogamy is a lifestyle that we're taught and grew up on the majority of our lives. I feel like a lot of times how the kids may feel may not be considered when changing lifestyles, or it's not talked about as much. Now, I want to agree with that. It's really not talked about as much. I'll address that part first and address where I think the problem lies or the responsibility lies. One, polygyny is an ancient form of marriage. It's ancient, okay? Monogamy is relatively new. Now, if you know us at OutstandingPersonalRelationships.com, we are pro-moral. So it really doesn't matter if you practice monogamy or polygyny, but we speak a lot more about polygyny because monogamy is considered the norm, de facto, just like in the question states, right? It says, you know what, monogamy is the norm, we raise up with monogamy. How do you really explain this type of thing? First, I would, again, like to just point to the people that I think are supposed to be taking the lead on this to begin with. And it's not the politicians, no. It's actually your religious leaders. Now, regardless whatever religion you may or may not follow, we know that in all scriptures, it doesn't matter if you're talking about the Islamic scriptures in the Quran, or if you're talking about in the Bible for Christians or Hebrews, or the Torah of the Yahud or the Jews, or even older scriptures, even Hindi scriptures, for example, right? And even Buddhist scriptures. Polygyny has been talked about for the longest in scripture. Now, Islam, and that's what I call Islamic polygyny, there's a restriction instead of regulations that are very detailed where it goes into, meaning that men can only marry up to 4 wives simultaneously. But needless to say, the people that are responsible for teaching these teachings and these morals should also be teaching the different forms of marriage. That's my opinion. So whether you need to talk to your pastor or your minister or your preacher or your imam or your rabbi, why aren't they talking about this and they teaching about this? It's an ancient form of marriage that the most righteous people on the planet that have walked with God has chosen, if you believe that, practice polygyny. So there's a responsibility carried when you're supposed to be a person of the cloth or someone who's supposed to be a religious leader and so on, to teach more than just even as imams or Islam or ulama may do about the rights and regulations or the specifics when it comes to the law, when it comes to polygyny. There's a responsibility in teaching how to grow into it, how to have the proper ambitions for it, how to be emotionally equipped for it for the men, or how to be emotionally prepared as women, especially if you're Muslim. But if you're not Muslim, doesn't matter. You still have rules and regulations and examples in your scripture as well. So one, it needs to be more talked about. So if you do follow a particular religion or scripture or whatnot, talk to the people who are supposed to be the teachers and ask them what's up. Because by not sharing that information, they're absolutely sharing in the responsibility of a lot of the mayhem that's going on, a lot of destruction of our communities and societies by not providing an ancient solution to a modern day problem, which is polygyny. Now, let me go back to the front of that though. I talked about, how do you explain it? Well, one of the things I truly believe in is that you have to just explain it. All right, when you're talking about the truth of the matter and things, or you're becoming more conscious of different things, you're talking about stuff in history, for example. Tell them the truth. If you want a good book on it, I mean, it just talks about it from multiple angles, academic wise and historically sound. You can check out Dr. Nancy Cott, and the book is called Public Vows. She goes into why it was pushed, especially in the West, just like the imperial mathematical system and everything else. Why it was pushed for the identity and what it stood for. And I'm not going to get off into it, but if you want to look at it from an academic viewpoint, go there. If you want to look at different ancient societies that practiced it, whether you're talking about kings or men of stature, or if you're talking about the laymen who had multiple wives and big family and land and so on to help till or trying to have more sons to protect the society as young warriors, different African clans in different countries and so on, you can talk about that as well. But the fact of the matter is, we should be open to explaining all of these different types of things and questioning our beliefs to begin with. If you've ever changed religions, or you chose to change your diet that you were raised upon to eat better, if you chose to change concepts and ideas, we have to understand that we are part of our social engineering. We hold ideas and concepts and styles of clothing and so on. Just based upon me speaking English to you right now, just shows you that I'm a product of that environment. So when you're talking about the Dow test, for example, that was done initially in the 60s, and not just done in the United States, but actually all over the world, where you look at the little white Dow and they point to the little white girl, she's the good one, then the darker the child gets, the worse behavior they consider the child, and the more ugly they consider the child, which is ridiculous. But how do you deal with that as a parent? How do you deal with it if you grew up and you were taught about Satan Claus? So it's the same letters in it, so I get a little confused, but Santa Claus. Or the Easter Bunny, or the Tooth Fairy. You know, what do you do when you have to break that to your child that's not correct? And we know that a lot of people know that these are lies and they carry it on with their children. I mean, that was the first betrayal I ever felt in my life, was from my parents telling me that Santa Claus wasn't real. The two people I trusted to lead me and everything. And when they told me, I was like, I was heartbroken, but I didn't know how to articulate, didn't really understand, other than, wow, my parents were lying to me all this time. But why not teach what polygyny is? Polygamy in general. Again, polygamy, just to talk about the terms, polygamy means multiple spouses. So that means men or women having multiple spouses. More specifically, under the umbrella of polygamy is polygyny. That's what we're normally talking about over 90% of the time. We're talking about history and what was practiced as polygamy is actually polygyny. That's where a man has multiple wives. Then there's polyandry, where a woman has multiple husbands. Then there's polyamory, which also is gaining a lot of fame and notoriety or whatnot. That's not necessarily a marriage style. Those are more open relationships, open consensual relationships that go on. But for my discussion, I'm talking about polygyny, the most common form of polygamy. So with that being said, myself, right, when I initially got married 11 years ago, two of my daughters, I think two of them were teenagers, or at least one was a teenager and the other one was about to be a teenager during that time. So right now I have children in different parts of their life or polygyny. So you have some that, that was in polygyny and they're like, okay, some people have the idea, this is going to break up the family and do this and that, and their children are going to be torn apart. Listen, the children are going to do and adapt to whatever you as a parent, in particular the mother, tries to implement. Let me give you an example. There may be bad divorces that occur, right? There's a good man that gets divorced from a woman, but the woman is constantly planting poisonous seeds in the children. How are the children going to feel about the father? Right? Or it could be vice versa. You could be a single dad, you're talking crazy about the mom. I don't encourage either of them. Children are going to grow up eventually and see whatever truth they come to, whatever conclusion they come to. But how will you deal with that type of tragic situation that actually is a whole lot more damaging than marrying, or the assumption that there's damage when marrying into polygyny? Okay, so I had teenagers, then I had my sons who were like 7, 8-year-old-ish, and then younger than that. So I've had children that have grown up and known nothing but polygyny. My youngest sons right now, all they know is polygyny. They know two moms. That's it. Then I have middle sons. They know polygyny. That's pretty much it. They were young at the time, a little transition. That was it. And I have older daughters. A couple of them were like, okay, well, this is different. It's a challenge. My mom had went through some stuff and everything else. And I didn't prep them right. I mean, I accept responsibility for that. I didn't know. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have imams or leaders or anything that really told me the emotional intelligence, how to really deal with these things. Yeah, I was a leader. I was doing different stuff in business. Yeah, no question. But your house is something different. So I made a number of mistakes. Again, my chapter 11 right now and what we're doing in polygyny is not my chapter 1 and 2. It was ugly before it got better. All right, I'm man enough to own that and my challenges and responsibilities with it. Nevertheless, that does not change your status as a parent. You're still going to be a parent. You're still going to be teaching. And here, let me give you another example. How do you explain something that was never explained to me as a child because it wasn't a thing? When it comes to the trans agenda or that whole community, the alphabet community, I never had to deal with that when I was younger. There was no question that a woman was a woman. There was no question about how many genders there were. There weren't over 30-some genders. It's 2. How do you address that? See, that's a new situation, isn't it? But it's better to be proactive and address it about whatever you may feel about it, to have that open discussion. See, as a parent, I also wrote this book called Muslims Parenting on Purpose, right? And I have this thing called 3Cs. A parent is a celebrity, they're a confidant, and they're the coach. So as a celebrity, that just means they're somebody that they looked up to as a role model. And the parents are usually the biggest celebrities, especially early on in the child's life. And then there's the confidant. You have to be able to help your children read between the lines. Help them understand the world because they have very limited experiences. But also be open enough so that they can come to you when they have questions and concerns that may be uncomfortable. We need to do that a whole lot more. Because there are a number of things in our communities that go on, that happen, and we know that happen, we kind of push under the rug or we don't speak about or whatnot, and I'm not going to divulge into those right now, but we have to be that confidant. And of course we must be the coach because we got to be their cheerleader and at the same time teach them discipline. So similarly, talking about polygyny is not something destructive. You talk about it, you share information about it, you talk about the historical figures with it, you talk about the religious figures with it. You know, it's just an option. But this option does require men to be a whole lot more. This is marriage. Not just dipping off into something and going to the side. Now, it requires a man to actually be a man of value. Now, I'm not talking about high value man and all that kind of other stuff you may have heard from different communities. I'm talking about a man of value. That means, one, that he actually has values. All right, now go into that in a different training and stuff like that. But nevertheless, whatever you choose to teach your children and how to expose your children to something intellectually, academically, and religiously does better to do it now and be proactive than to wait or try to act like something is hidden or behind things. See, it's one thing you can talk about, oh, that's a side piece or that's a mistress or, that's his girlfriend or everybody knows we just don't say anything. Nope. Their child will grow up. And in an instant world where I used to have to go to an encyclopedia, they just tap their fingers and about to be in a metaverse in a second, they will find out the information. But why not lose trust with your children by being proactive and speaking about it? Not taking your pain or challenge or adjustment, if you are a woman having challenges with it, to your children and putting it on them. See, they're not married to their father. So I consider my children's emotions and roles, but they just had to learn something about it. I'm not married to them. I'm still their father and will be their father till the day I die. So it's important to understand, let's not use our children as a scapegoat and put them there as though their world is going to fall apart, because it's really not. What do you teach your children if your father or dad's going away on a vacation somewhere, or he works at the fire department, works 72-hour shifts, or he's out of the country on business? You tell them something, you keep it pushing. But now it's polygyny, so it just seems like something that's all the way crazy and brand new and blah, 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 and it's destructive. No. The meaning you assign to it as a parent, and particularly a mother, is very important. And understand that these children will grow up, and they will either see that information they will give as a result of the meaning you put on something, meaning something was negative, destructive, and hurtful and harmful, and it's temporary. But the seeds that you planted may come back to bite you. Because when children are younger, of course, in general, they're going to take mom's side. They team mom all the way. Mom's hurting, feeling bad, and so on. They might look to the other side. But as they grow up and begin to feel and find things out on their own, you don't want to be the one to say, you know what? You was the one telling me about Santa Claus. And this whole polygyny thing, nah. You don't want to be that one. So, nevertheless, being proactive, speaking to them about it, being open about it, looking at it from an academic level, whether or not you plan to practice it or not, it still should be an option. There are many good men out there able to provide emotionally, financially, and so on, that only know monogamy as being acceptable. But if the polygyny was also acceptable, or at least on the table, you wouldn't have a lot of other fitna, a lot of other trials and tribulation things that's going on. And the man can do it honorably like we used to do it before monogamy got pushed for men. Yeah, monogamy got pushed for men. Because with monogamy, you have one legal wife and you have your children, but your girlfriends, your jump jobs, your side pieces, your mistresses, boyfriends even, all of that, you can have all that. That's unlimited. Okay? You can have as much of that as you want. But the only ones you need to take care of is right here. That is not at least what I'm about. We're about pro-morals. So whether monogamy or polygyny, be moral. And I know some people are like, oh, you talking about be moral and you're Muslim. Yeah, I'm a Muslim. So I follow Islamic morality in that code. That's what I do with adapt. Yeah, no doubt. But there are universal morals that are respected, like respect, like lying, like being deceptive and cheating. These aren't respected in any community. There are universal morals like honor and integrity and strength and power and courage. These are universal morals and principles that are respected. And all I'm saying is be pro-morals. And yes, I'm biased. I'm Muslim. I think Islam got the best system, no doubt. La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah. No question. Yeah, I was raised Christian. I've been through that thing. But that's a personal thing. I'm not proselytizing to you right now. But I just want to talk about polygyny and that transition. And it's up to you to do your own research as an adult and be proactive so that you can keep that family unit intact and grow it in a fashion that's healthy, honorable, and puts morals up top. So with that being said, again, I'm Coach Nadir. I'm a coach that's known to help people get their shift together. My wives and I, you can reach us, outstandingpersonalrelationships.com. Check out our social medias. Go from there. Salaam alaikum. Peace. Here are 3 ways outstanding personal relationships can help you.
Make sure you guys are following us on our social medias at Outstanding Personal Relationships on YouTube and Facebook, and on IG at Outstanding Relationships, and also Clubhouse under our names.
And make sure you go to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com and sign up for our email list. And there you will get updates on our new book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored.
Absolutely. And last but not least, when it comes to coaching or counseling, if you want to work with us one-on-one or in group settings, make sure you're on that website and reach out to us because we do have very limited spots and we usually have a wait list. So with that being said, GLC.
Make sure you are growing intentionally,
loving fearlessly,
and connecting on a higher level every single day. Salaam alaikum. Peace.